Hello again, YouTube. Welcome back to JJD's Vintage Chainsaw channel. Today I'm taking a look at my Lombard 316 Woodlot Wizard gas-powered chainsaw from 1951. This was the first, if not the first, then one of the first Lombard saws that used the AH47 Power Products engine instead of Homelite engines that were used on the OMS and the GS series, the one-man and two-man saws from the late 40s and really early 1950s, 50 and the first part of 51 before they switched to Power Products. This one it's a 316, so it's a Model 3 with a 16-inch bar. That was a nifty little bit of trivia I learned recently. That being said, I've never heard of any other models like a 320 or a 326, but you know, if I took another old Homelite bar with lightning holes on it with a 9/16 chain and put it on here, I suppose that would be a Model 326 then. But anyway, this one's got 9/16 pitch maul chain on it. I guess the original Lombard chain was well used up and somebody cannibalized maul chain from another saw. Saw serial number YS4854. And the YS prefix, don't ask me what it means, but that prefix designates an actual Model 316. There were a number of these saws, and you can still see them on eBay, where they've got different shaped handles, like an L-shaped rear handle and a stamped sheet metal tank. And they call the engine tag on the bottom of the starter shroud there designates those saws as well as a Model 316, even though they're not. Even though there may be a Model 35 or a 30 or could be any number of other models, but for some reason they also bear the 316 tag on the starter shroud, which sort of tells me that Lombard had some extra starters with those engine tags that they had to get rid of, and rather than paying for new tags to match the model, they just got rid of the old ones and figured, what the hell. You know, it was a small enough company in Ashland, Massachusetts, actually next town over from where I work today, and yeah, they probably just figured, what the heck, use up the old inventory. This one is interesting because it has a stack exhaust, not even a muffler, it's just a straight pipe. And the original casting would have had a cap with 5 or 6 holes drilled in there. I've got another saw with one of those. But it was pretty common for users to carve it out either by hand or with a Dremel or something to improve airflow and open the pipe up. So a lot of these you see the exhaust cap is all carved out. Not too common are the original ones anymore. This is an early model because it has a 9/16 sprocket instead of half-inch. They switched to half-pitch for the later runs of this saw model. MD60A Tillotson float-style carburetor. And actually, this carburetor, I replaced it because the old one had a crack in the casting at the carb throat near the crankcase side, near the reed plate, and that was causing an air leak and some runnability issues where the saw wouldn't want to idle very well. It would idle at really high RPMs, almost like crank seals were bad, and it also lost a lot of power. Like when I would stick the saw into some wood, it would immediately just crap out and die, so no power. And that was caused by both a crack in the casting and also a faulty gasket at the reed plate. They use a really, really thick, maybe a 1/4 inch thick gasket. And that one was still intact, but you know, it wasn't right. It was really gushy, and it might have had a split somewhere that I didn't notice, but anyway, you know, I replaced that with another one from a carb kit I got from Discount Marine on eBay. They're a pretty good seller. They do a lot of OEM Tillotson kits. They are a little more expensive. I think I paid like $35 for that kit, which ordinarily I would just go, ugh. But you know, for an old enough carburetor, and I needed a bowl gasket, which turns out I could just cut one myself, and I've done that before, but this was back before I had the wherewithal to do that. And once I took care of those little things, I got this thing running actually pretty well, and it has enough power to cut. The trouble is, you know, I sharpened the chain, I sharpened the cutters, but I neglected to take down the rakers. So I put this thing into some wood, and it had power, but the chain was just sliding across the wood. It wasn't even trying to cut. So stupid me, I got to take the rakers down. But once I do that, then I can upload a couple videos of this thing actually cutting. You know, I certainly have enough videos up there of me just running it and playing with it, but nothing yet of me cutting. This one's cool too because it has a V-shaped rear handle. Some of the later models used a U-shape, like the 3.5D or the 3A, which replaced this one. And then they started switching to the L-shaped handles like you find on the Model 35 and the D40A, and then some of the models even from the 1960s. I think actually the DD and the DD2, the first direct drive models, actually used that shaped handle as well. But anyway, originally this one would have been painted red. You can still see remnants of the red paint like you do on the tank. I actually like the aluminum finish a little bit better. I think it's a little prettier with the rest of the saw. Obviously the paint needs some help. There's not much original paint left on there. I still don't know yet if I'm gonna restore this thing and redo the paint or if I'm just gonna leave it as is. I think these saws are entitled to show their wear, you know, for how old they are. I mean, this, again, being a 1951 saw, this is going to be, I mean, geez, this saw is what, 75 years old now? And it still runs, so that's pretty cool. It's also missing some starter hardware, the rewind starter. Originally it had it, but there were some broken parts in there. I think I had to cannibalize a starter spring from another Lombard saw, but I actually took that rewind starter off and put it on the Lombard 3.5D that I have to get that thing started and up and running, which runs great. So I've just been starting this one with a drill, and I've got no issues with using the drill to start it. And you know, sometimes like on a direct drive saw with you know, the righty-tighty, lefty-loosey threads on the flywheel nut, the drill would actually just take the flywheel nut right off and you couldn't even start it. But this one, being a gear drive, the engine spins backwards, so I can spin the drill clockwise and actually tighten the flywheel nut as I'm starting the engine, which is pretty cool. The other thing that's pretty nifty about this one, a little bit ahead of its time, if you will, I know you can't see it, but there's, on the side of the sprocket, there's a hole for an automatic oiler. And this thing would essentially just use centripetal force of the engine spinning to sling oil across the sprocket and the chain and the bar. And I mean, it's wildly inefficient. I mean, the oil tank empties out like that. But it did the job, and it kept the bar and chain nice and cool. So that's pretty cool. A little bit ahead of its time. Still has a goofy little plastic cap on the spark plug wire. But I don't think there's a sheet metal washer and another washer that's used to hold it down. Those can't be original. I think the plastic has some holes in it, so they just needed something else to clamp it down after the fact. But this was another one where I had to, when I first got it, it had no spark, and you know, I had to pull the flywheel and clean the points and clean off the magneto and a couple other little things. I think the wire inside the coil was disconnected, so I just shoved it back in there and wrapped it around the little lead, and now she was off and running. So after the carburetor fixes, you know, I'm happy to say that this thing is running more or less as it should. So be on the lookout for a video coming up pretty soon of this thing actually cutting some wood. I don't see too many videos on YouTube of these old Lombard saws. I actually don't think I see any of the Woodlot Wizard doing any real cutting, so that would be an interesting one to put up there. But, you know, just another nifty gear drive saw from the 1950s in my collection. The first ever Lombard saw in my collection. You know, I was searching eBay one day looking for old chainsaws, and I came across a Lombard Governor. What the heck is that? That's pretty wonky. And for $100, you know, I showed it to my dad, and he was just like, "Oh, you want it? I'll get it for you." So my first ever Lombard saw was a gift from Dad. So thanks, Dad. I know you're up in the living room listening. But anyway, hope you guys had a safe and happy New Year, Merry Christmas, and all that. Hope you guys stayed safe. Obviously, I hope you called an Uber last night if you were out partying and you needed somebody to bring you home. I stayed in and I was working on saws. I did a new chain on a Power Max 6, and I spent some other time working with a Home Light Zip. trying to fix a leak in that carburetor, so maybe I'll do another discussion video on that one sometime soon. But until then, take care, guys. I'll see you next time, and look forward to some more videos. See ya.